2.5 years ago now. My wife and I were expecting the first child. Basically, he just did not survive. I've never walked through a journey quite like that. If we didn't have worship, I don't know how we would have survived. I don't know how people walk through life's toughest seasons without the assistance, worship and community and relationship with God.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Release the Sound podcast. I'm super excited because this is season 3, and I thought to myself, who can we have as a very special guest for season 3, talking all things prophetic worship? And so I am honored, my friends, to introduce you to my good friend, Luke Taylor. Who is Luke Taylor, you might ask? Some of you might be going, Luke Taylor, no way, this is awesome. But for those of you that don't know Luke, let me just do a nice introduction, Luke, because I want to honor you. Luke is the creative arts pastor. Is that what everyone has different names, but that's, yeah?
Yeah, that works.
That works. I love it. He is the creative arts pastor for Hope Unlimited Church. Hope You See, one of our favourite churches in Australia, which is on the central coast of New South Wales, under the amazing leadership of Mark and Darlene Zschech. Hope Unlimited Worship impacts Christians around the globe. Beautiful worship, beautiful albums. It's a multi-site church. If you haven't heard of this church, it's across Australia and other nations of the world. And, you know, the reason I wanted to talk to Luke, I was just recently up at Hope You See, and I love how the prophetic is being expressed in different communities right now. Everybody is, you know, experimenting right now. I feel like God's heart is really for moving in the Holy Spirit. He always has been. It always has been, but we're all doing it in different ways. And so we've had some great conversations about how that's working at Hope You See. And I thought you'd love to hear from Luke how they do it when it's a church that's multi-site, where there's bigger congregations, where you've got a label, where you're doing worship. And Luke is the man to talk to about that. Luke is married to Amy and has a beautiful daughter who I got to meet, Banksy. They've also got a precious son in heaven, Lawson. Hang tight because he's going to share a little bit about that journey as well. And he's been in worship ministry for a very long time. You're going to love the wisdom that he's got to share today. Everybody do a little clap in your car or your home. Welcome, Luke. Yeah, it's so great to have you, Luke.
Wow. Thanks for having me. That is a very, very gracious and wonderful intro.
It's all true. You know it. But you're very humble, and I appreciate that about you. I love that. And Luke, I mean, I've only shared really the tip of the iceberg of what you've actually done. Do you want to share maybe just a couple of minutes on your background, how you ended up in this role? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I grew up in a family church. My grandmother and grandfather pastored it. When my grandfather passed away, my nan took on the church. And so for like my childhood and teen life was being involved in a church that my grandmother was the leader of, pastoring. And I mean, backstory to that is, you know, even before she was pastoring the church, my entry or my foot into ministry was being bribed by my grandmother $10 for me to sing on the worship team. So I like to joke and I give her all the credit for that. That was my first paid gig. and it was, you know, I joke, it wasn't a gig, it was worship, but that was, you know, that she really encouraged and kind of pushed me into that space. And I had been singing in the car and learning harmonies with my mum, you know, on drives to school and different things like that. And Nan kind of, bribed me.
That is hilarious.
Which is great. And then look, you know, my Nan getting older, she retired. We had a season where she handed the church over to another gentleman. And then 5 years into that journey, he handed the church over to Pastor Mark and Darlene. And that's where the church that the family church that I grew up in and you know, everything that I'd ever known, then we became part of this bigger family within the OC world. And as of this year, back in February, I've been on staff here 10 years.
Oh my goodness. Luke, I had no idea that this was your history. That's phenomenal.
That just like goes in a blink.
And also, I mean, we have a bit of a secret running joke, maybe you do too, but worship leaders lasting 10 years, or creative arts pastors lasting 10 years in a
Yeah.
role is something to be celebrated. So
Yeah. Yes.
congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. Look, and not, I don't know. It's kind of like I say, you blink and you get here, but I look around Australia and some of the great friends that I've got that are worship leading, they are, and I would say we are changing, we're changing that culture. It's not a
Yes.
fly in, fly out. It's no, it is a calling. We're committed to a community, a family. So yeah, thank you. But that's kind of a bit of my story background. I came into the Hope to See family as a youth pastor at one of our campuses. Then
Wow.
I did some chaplaincy. I taught in our Bible college for a little while. And then
Wow.
6 years ago, 7 years ago, when I got married, I came back from my honeymoon and officially took on the role of
Wow.
worship/creative pastor. And so that's been the last 7 years. I've been 100% devoted to leading this team.
Amazing.
Always been in worship, on the team. So
I love it. I love it. And I know a little bit about your background, your touring days with some of those worship bands. We've had lots of
yeah,
conversations around that. So I mean, basically you've been a worshiper since you came out of the womb.
yeah, yeah,
And my favorite thing about you, Luke, is how committed you are to people. Like it's not even about your role or about worship. You're a minister. Like and I actually wish more people in worship ministry would think like that actually we're here to serve our communities, not be, we see this a lot. I see this a lot when I travel where God's hand is on some, some expression of
yeah,
worship in a church and it turns into a thing, you know.
yeah,
Next thing you know, they're talking, well, wow, we've got the sound or we've got
yeah,
something. And I start to grieve when I see that
yeah,
because I'm like, actually, it's it should be like any other department in a church. We're here to serve. And it's
yeah,
wonderful. There's nothing wrong with the Lord, expanding that,
yeah,
but let him do it, like our first role is ministers in the kingdom, serving people. And I that is what I see when I come to Hope You See, is that kind of culture, which is beautiful. I know every church has its idiosyncrasies. That's just life. Every family does, doesn't it?
yeah,
So, but I'd love to hear, I mean, I love the songs that you're
yeah,
writing. Darlene also sent me a couple of songs she's just been
yeah,
writing recently. And I'm like, wow, there is
yeah,
something on what you guys are doing right now around the
yeah,
songwriting. But let's start. Okay, I'm going ahead of myself. Let's start a little bit around how you navigate. What do you think about the prophetic in worship? How are you navigating, facilitating that, and so on? What's your thoughts?
yeah,
What do you think?
yeah. Oh man, I mean, where do you start? I think obviously probably one of the first things when we talk about prophetic and spontaneous song, I think probably my background is I sometimes might not necessarily have known the distinction between those. I think people like yourself have been really brilliant at helping us, put some language around those things. And so probably for me, what I would say is, my entry into the prophetic song is the spontaneous song. I'll start, and we talked about this over lunch a few weeks ago. Like I'll just start by opening my mouth and letting, I think if you're in worship and you're trying to find a prophetic or a spontaneous song, and you don't just open your mouth and have a go, you're never gonna start. So
So good.
I would my desire is, okay, I'm just gonna give it a go, and also like a lot of the stuff that I test out, if that's the right word, or try and have a crack at it. I'll often just focus on doing that even more so in rehearsals and with the
Right.
team on a Wednesday night or even before the service has started, because all of that is just building up a confidence in me that, okay, like I can do this. Like this is something that
Yes.
God has placed in the set of gifts that I've got. And then I think that the more spontaneous that I've been able to become, that's helped me refine the prophetic
Great.
song, because it's just like sharpening an axe. And I think as you take that prophetic song and you give it legs and give it melody and you give it chord progressions and all of that stuff, then all of a sudden you do find yourself with a really sharp focus on you. And, I mean, the example is, a year ago when you were here at Charm Haven and you were preaching, you're hilarious, right? You get up there, you share this phenomenal word, you share a bit of your testimony going into the prophetic word, you call our creative team back up. I happened to be leading that morning and almost like, it wasn't this blunt. It was like, all right, Luke, have a go. And you walked off.
It was that blunt.
But, we sang for another half hour, 40 minutes, right? And some of it was spontaneous. Some of it was, we sat on a chord progression and we pulled in some songs that we were known and tags that the church were familiar with. But then right at the end, you had been preaching on Watchmen on the Walls. That was the topic of your sermon. And then almost like an out of body experience, like it wasn't in my mind. It wasn't the wisdom of Luke, but after, a bunch of minutes and time in spontaneous and known songs, all of a sudden the melody and the lyrics came out of me. We're Watchmen on the Walls. And we remember that moment because the room lifted. I wouldn't have been able to get to that point had it not been for testing the waters in spontaneous song, other space. So, I thank you for helping us create some distinctions around those and then releasing people. And on that, you very much released, you kind of trusted me, and our team, you gave us that space. So thanks.
I loved that day. I don't know who filmed it, but somebody filmed it for me and sent it to me. And I actually play it. I've played it more than once because the anointing, when you went into that Watchman on the Walls thing, I was like, what just happened? Just everything that I dream of seeing happen happened that morning. It was, and I felt like, I mean, it doesn't always feel like this, but it felt like something healed.
Yeah.
Did it feel like that to you? I don't even know what I'm saying when I say that, but I felt like there was like a healing balm coming out as you sang. Did you feel that?
Look, I think it gave our team a new permission and like you're saying, not to be reflecting on what was and the old, and maybe for some of our people, like the limitations that have been put on them in past contexts. And also it was like, here we go. So certainly, that was a special moment. And I think maybe a distinction for me, definitely being able to go, I can sing the prophetic song. Like that's in me. The Spirit wants to draw that out. So I appreciate, thank you for that.
Oh no, thank you for stepping into it. And I've got so many things I want to share. Like I'm thinking to myself, people that are listening here going, we want to do that too. Really a key that I've experienced in my own life and when I've led other teams and other people is that whole thing of just have a go. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. And, we've got a mutual friend, Ali Dowling, and that's how I don't know if you know, but that's how she started. We were having lunch recently and we were talking about it. So she was in our team when I was worship pastoring at the time. And I remember we were on stage and you could just see it all over her. And I mean, she's an incredible, we'll have to have her on the podcast actually talking about that. But I just remember turning around going, all right, have a go. And I actually think the key is making room.
Yeah.
Just making room and being okay.
Yeah.
It falls in a heap. Who cares?
Exactly.
It's not a performance. We're not performing. No. We don't want to bleed over people. Like I always say to people, and I actually heard this amazing quote the other day, and it was lead from your scars, not your wounds.
Yeah, that's good.
Wow. I'm just like, yes. So we don't want to like come and we're singing from the sorrow in our heart, but we want to have that space of going, you can actually have this place of vulnerability leading from the scars. There's a melody. There's a melody on your scars.
Yep.
And
that's good.
And that as we just make the room and give people a go, I think one of the things too that and you're so good at this, Luke, is we're not the ones that have it all. We're just the
This is
ones that
true.
facilitate it, eh?
Yeah,
And
this is
I
true.
and I love that. Like the other night, we were sharing via text, we had our worship night here in Melbourne
Yeah,
with our friends. And at one point, I just went and sat down for about 20 minutes and I
yeah.
just watched them all prophesying and singing. And it was a
Wow.
joy. I was like, I'm so glad I'm not, I don't have to carry this, that
Yeah,
I just have to facilitate something, make room for
yeah,
it. I think giving permission
yeah,
is 70% of stepping into the prophetic song, to be honest, is just going, it's
yeah,
actually okay. You can make a mistake. It doesn't
yeah,
matter. We're here to just pull the golden thread
yeah,
that the Lord is giving us and see what comes, you know?
yeah.
Hey,
That's
Luke.
I
Oh,
think that's what
mm,
I would say to like worship leaders is like you don't have to have it all. You've been in those positions, you're leading worship. You need a music director that's thinking musically and coming up with chord
yes.
progressions and providing that bed there. And
Yes.
then you need like I was in America recently and was leading with a person that with a girl that I'd only really recently met, but oh, you know, she was the other guest there. We got on quite well, her and her husband. He was MD. So thankfully, there was a great synergy in our relationship off platform. And then on platform during the night, there was some moments where I'll get to the point where it's like, oh, all right, I've sung enough now and I'm not feeling, that well. It's starting to just slow down a bit personally. And, and,
Yes.
and that's when I kind of identify in my mind, okay, you can shut up sometimes, Luke. And I did. And in that moment, then she just erupted with this fresh song and
Wow.
on two occasions across that time, and it was the synergy and the relationship we had built off platform very quickly as well.
Wow.
And so it as a team, when we're approaching worship on a Sunday, it's draw upon the gifts of the collective, the group, the
Love
people you're
it.
with, and don't feel like you have to be the solo artist person that pulls it all together. Like,
Mm.
I mean, the best stuff that's happened to it being when I shut up.
Yeah, me too. I'm so with you. That is awesome. I love hearing that. And it's freeing because
Yeah,
if you're not there, it's not reliant on you, and I
yeah,
think we do that too often, don't we? But Luke, one thing that we've glossed over that I actually think is really important for people to know is you said, oh, when we have rehearsals.
yeah,
And um, most churches of your size, most churches like our size, they don't have rehearsals.
yeah,
But I'm like, bring back the rehearsal, people.
yeah,
I
yeah,
I I've even said to our guys, because they're like, "Well, how do we do it? We've got discipleship, we've got meetings, we've got connect group." And I'm like,
yeah,
"Well, can worship team be connect group? Can you do
yeah,
connect groups there, then have rehearsal?" Because practicing the prophetic
yeah,
is so important. It sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it?
yeah,
Because people go, "What?" But the prophetic spontaneous. No, that's one place where the
yeah,
prophetic can manifest itself. But the
yeah,
prophetic can also be, I just feel like the Lord wants us to sing this song right now in
yeah,
this moment, or oh, we're going to change the set list in the middle.
yeah,
And
yeah,
also just practicing that, like having space. So when you have a rehearsal, it's not just learning songs, but you're doing this kind of things. I
yeah,
think it makes our Sunday services not the practice times then.
yeah, exactly. Well, look, I mean, I've got to, admit right now when it comes to rehearsals at Hope C, that's honestly a wisdom and a guidance that's come from Pastor Darlene.
Beautiful.
She, she's brilliant. And we'll talk a little more about, I guess, that context. I so much respect for my lead pastors, but that's something that Dallas has just always been adamant about. She's like, if you want to be able to include people, varying degrees of skill, you can't rock up on a Sunday. Now, you can rock up on a Sunday and just have a great morning if everyone is a session musician
Yeah.
who lives and breathes music. We're a church that is we're not in a city. We're a regional church. We've got people that are musicians, grown up, dabbled, and it's definitely is a beautiful part of their worship. But they're not traveling around the globe. They're not,
Yes.
they're not singing and performing in bars midweek and
Mm.
and developing that skill. So for us, it is a value that if we want, and again, this is not my own wisdom. I have received this, and I thank the Lord for it.
Yeah.
But if we want to have a team that is wide and deep and able to
Beautiful.
accommodate for people in varying skill levels, then
Right.
we have to have, and we have to prioritize our Wednesday nights for us, that is, when we have rehearsals. But, like exactly to your point, we pushed in as a church into life groups where we're very much all about life groups.
Yes.
And now when we're trying to gather statistics on the health of our church, one of the major measure points is what's the percentage of people attending a life group compared to a Sunday. And we want those numbers to be on par. If not, we'd be happy if the number of people in life groups midweek was larger than the number of attendees on a Sunday, right? So
Wow.
that's a thing for us at
Amazing.
OPC. But in developing that, we chose to count the Wednesday rehearsal number because it said to our team, like, that time together, we're going to have a spiritual component. We're going to pray for one another's needs. We'll have a devotion. We're going to actually, put our equipment down and stand in a circle or sit in a circle, whatever it might be, and talk to one another before we get to the music. So yeah, that's not everywhere. People give or take that, but that's a distinction and a choice we've made here at OTC. That, one, we will continue to have rehearsals, but also we will count them as a life group or as a connect group, and we'll put the components of a life group into them. So yeah, that's our context.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I love that idea. I'm taking notes, mentally taking notes about that as well, because I think that's really powerful. And then you do have that space to go, all right, let's practice something spontaneous or prophetic.
Yeah, exactly.
Fabulous, fabulous. Talking around that, when we were having lunch, we talked a little bit about how do you move in the prophetic when you're using tracks. So not all churches are going to have this problem, but if you're a mid-sized, larger church, I also know, like, some of our locations at our church, they will just have tracks and a guitarist and a vocalist. That's it. And they're like, how do we move in the spirit when you have that? And you had some awesome suggestions. Do you want to share a little around that?
Yeah, thanks. You're talking about that.
It was so simple, but so good.
I think that people fear what they don't know. And, often the confusion around tracks is, perhaps it's technology we're not familiar with. Maybe it's a device, an age thing, a generational thing. But I think if people would just take the time to understand tracks and the support that they can bring to your community, your creative team, if we just invest some time in understanding the platform, whether it's multi-tracks or loop community, then we can actually dispel some of those myths, of like, oh, tracks are so limiting, gonna, put us in a box. We have to start the song and finish the song in the 3 minutes they're providing. That's all we can do. That's just not the reality of multi-tracks or loop community. And thankfully, over the last few years, I've built a good friendship with one of the guys who works for multi-tracks here in Australia.
Awesome.
And he has helped me personally dispel some of those myths. And I've worked with him on a few occasions where I've watched him. He would, he plays keys and he would be the tracks operator. That in those instances, it's given me great confidence to one is when I was worship leading to flow and to know that this platform accommodates for that. So, so our first thing I would say to people who are concerned about tracks or feel that they're limiting, get to know the platform and understand it.
Right.
You can get the apps on your phone and you can play with the songs at home. So we as a church, we won't buy tracks for every song, but we will buy them for the songs that usually, that need it, that there's an identity in that song, that's maybe a loop or a key line that's a synth or a musical instrument we don't have in our room. So we'll get the tracks, and all the tracks can be sectioned off. So you can have the chorus there, you can have a verse, they're all labeled and identified. And as a worship leader, if you go into a rehearsal or a Sunday and you know already that you want to double a chorus or you want to cut a verse, you want to go straight to the bridge, or you can actually go and design the structure of the song to fit your plan, the purpose that you want it to have. So already it's built with that functionality. Now that's having pre-thought and being able to go in. I know with certain songs, I always want to do a double chorus at this point in the song. I want to, lengthen the bridges at the end. There's arrangement ideas that I just know I love about a song that I'm always going to do, and I can put that into the track. Now, then when it comes to being in the moment and you're in worship and you're trying to, flesh out some of these, spontaneous moments or even just a musical moment, there, especially if you've got a musician or someone on your team who is operating that tracks device, you can click sections of a song and just have them repeat.
Right.
And so,
Wow.
we'll do that. The tracks also come with inbuilt pads now, which is just, it's a atmospheric sound that sits on the one of the, of the key that you're in. And again, you can then close off the track by, or close up your song by sitting on the one, or you can have the click at the end. You can just do an infinite click so that it keeps you on time, and you can then, go off book. You could maybe change the chord progression and try a few different things, but stay within that, the meter that's been provided. So yeah, there's some of the ways that we utilize
Fabulous
tool, because again, it's a tool to help you in worship. It's not, I think too many churches have believed the myth that, if we run to tracks, we have a start and a finish.
Yes.
And that's all we're going to get.
Yes. Well, sometimes when I've been a guest and had to
Yeah.
lead somewhere, that's what they've said. They've said, this is a start to finish, and I
Yeah.
hate it. I'm like, I don't want to use the track then if that's what we're
Yeah.
going to do. But when I was up with you and I was leading worship for the conference there with Craig was with
Yeah.
us. He was like, oh no, if you can just give me enough notice, I can do it in the middle of the song. I can just move the track. And I was like, this is the best thing ever. Like but it just needed someone who had the skill.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing. So it's like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's like, if you have the skills, then it can work for you. So this is the company that you're talking about. It's Multi-Tracks. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. And look, they have plenty of online YouTube videos, clips to resource people. So, that's for our team. We're constantly sending them videos to say, hey, like learn the platform better. Of course, the less you know about the platform, the more limited you're going to be.
Yes.
And I think that's, people are well-meaning in the experiences you've had. It's not like they don't want to be limited.
No.
But their lack of knowledge does limit them. And, that's where, people like Craig are brilliant, that invested the time to learn the platform. And that then frees us up in the live worship moment. And then it backs, like the app then backs you and supports you, and and then it's good. It's not a limiting factor.
Fabulous. I love it. I'd never even thought about that till you talked about it. No. So that's really good to know. All right, I want to change tracks for a little bit.
Yeah.
And just so people know what's coming up, I want to talk about what we're going to talk about now, but then I want to talk about your songwriting process at the end to finish up. But I feel like, and I'm so glad that you're not afraid to talk about this, but I want to share, a lot of people can think when you're in worship or, life's just perfect and everything's good, but you've had some difficult things in your own life that have happened, and you've had to worship through that.
Yeah.
I'd love for our friends to hear your story, if you'd like to share it.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, look, it must be about 2.5 years ago now. My wife and I were expecting first child, Lawson, Ziggy Taylor, and everything about the pregnancy had just been perfect. There was just nothing at all wrong. We had no reason to believe that there would be any problems. Lawson was measuring well on every scan that we had and kicking around and all this crazy stuff. But, of course, and, as we know, that we got to his birthday and Amy gave birth. And in that process, there's a lot of details going on, but basically he just did not survive. The trauma of birth for him and everything that had been going on in her body that was hidden and unknown to us, he didn't survive. He was with us aside for, I think, about 3 hours. And then, we had to say very quickly a hello and a goodbye to him. And that prior to that, you got to be honest. I'd lived a pretty good life, and in terms of suffering, I would have maybe thought I'd suffered, but
Mm.
comparatively, I've never walked through a journey quite like that at all. And to the point of what we're discussing today, like if we didn't have worship,
Wow.
I don't know how we would have survived. If we didn't have songs that gave voice to our pain, I
Wow.
don't know. I don't. Yeah, genuinely, I don't know how people walk through life's toughest seasons without the assistance, worship, and community and relationship with God. So,
Yeah.
we had on repeat, and I can say this affectionately now. Of course, in the moment it's painful, but we had on repeat that Bethel Peace album. We were placed in a birthing suite for a few days where we got to actually sit and be with Lawson, and he had passed at that point, and we just had the worship of God
Wow.
just nonstop in that room for those few days. People would come and visit us and would come to meet Lawson and hang out with us and get to feel and touch and see him. But we would always in the background had worship going, and just, for us, there was some anchor songs and moments, just phrases and melodies that became so pivotal for us. I mean, another thing that, as I'm speaking to you, I'm reflecting on now, like we are just in that. Amy and I are blessed to be in the most wonderful community of faith.
Wow.
And I cannot speak more highly of Pastor Mark and Darlene as pastoring us and our church through that. But next to that, we have creative people that were writing us poems. Chris and Beth, who are campus pastors here, wrote us a song. They had their story is they put on their coffee people, right? That it was later in the afternoon, in the night. They put some coffee on because they were planning on staying up all night and interceding for us.
Wow.
And of course, then they got the news that Lawson had passed. And so they all suddenly had this caffeine in their body. They were like, well, we're going to stay up late. So they stayed up through the night and wrote this song for us around the situation of Lawson and
Wow.
the loss of a child. I had another friend, Angus, who wrote, he just sat it down at his piano one day and pushed record and he just played for like 4 minutes, this melody. And then sorry.
No.
He played this melody and then sent it to me. So then we had that melody, just a musical piece. And then 6 months later, he showed what he had done is he had employed a Ukrainian quartet. He had notated out his spontaneous song for us and Lawson. He then notated it for a quartet and then paid a quartet in Ukraine to record this musical piece. And so then all of a sudden, Amy and I had this most wonderful piece of music as a gift for us that holds us, connects us to Lawson and connects us to that pain, but also brings such beauty. And so like that is insane. That is we are so blessed. And so in the midst of what has been our hardest, toughest, worst moments of life, it is married to some of the sweetest, beautiful things. Mark and Darl's carried us through that. They breathed for us when we couldn't breathe. They held us when we couldn't stand up, and they helped us, think of things and walk it really maturely and sensitively, and all of that, flowing from them flowed into our community, and we were blessed, like so blessed. Yeah. So I don't know if that
Oh
answers
my
or starts to
goodness.
answer your question.
Well, if I'm crying, I'm sitting here crying. So yes, it does answer your question. I just feel the kindness of the Father as you're talking, and
100%.
the
He is
power
so
of the prophetic in
Yeah.
even in that
Yeah.
space is
Yeah.
just profound,
Yeah.
and thank you for
Yeah.
not shying away
Yeah.
from sharing about that. And Luke, it begs the question, do we have enough spaces
Yeah.
songs of lament? Like, what
Yeah.
now that you've been through that,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts around that?
Oh, so like, I remember when I was in Bible college, I was studying a Bachelor of Theology, and one of my lecturers at the time actually wrote a paper on lament and the space for lament in church settings. And I think that, for me personally, going back 10 years ago, introduced to me a layer of worship that I was very unfamiliar with. And even though I, at the time, agreed with the paper and thought it was great, I was like, oh, I cheered it on. Still, the practice within me personally probably was not there. And, it's only now in hindsight, going through such a deep grief, that
Yeah.
I personally crave and long for lyrics that are going to speak to those deep, painful moments in our life. The beauty is that they are there.
Mm.
They can be found. They exist. You know, Perhaps maybe in a worship setting we are a little more focused on praise and
Yes.
adoration. But if you look across the spectrum of Christian worship music that is out there, it is available to you. And I created a personal playlist, Amy and I,
Wow.
of songs of these laments. You
Wow.
know, we could pull together. And again, the beauty of my pastors, Pastor Dales, there are so many songs that she has written over the years.
Yes.
One of them that comes to mind right now, Cry of the Broken. Like, it's literally the title of it is a cry for people who are broken. That's us.
Yes.
So, we were able to actually go through her, back catalog and grab
Wow.
these great hymns
Wow.
and laments from across the ages and put them into our, playlist that we could play
Beautiful.
through. And then, yeah, so I guess, to answer your question, is there a place for lament in the church? I do think we can be a mature church that includes it more.
Yes.
I also think, you've got to know the context of your community. And,
Yes.
certainly
Great.
for our church, and this is the beauty, our church really walked through the loss of Lawson with us quite closely. Like, not just Mark and Darlene and not just staff and not close friends, but the full breadth of our
Wow.
community definitely walked through us. And I think in that season, there was space because it was appropriate for more lament like songs.
Right.
And, so you've got to know the season your church is in. You've got to know the season that your people are in. And there'll be pockets, we're a 6-campus church. There's pockets of time where a specific community or a campus are going through a lament more so than another church. And so we will we will cultivate songs more specific to that community because they need that in that moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
That's
guess I
great.
want to say the songs are out there. If you're a worship leader and you're, thinking, oh, where are they? Like, you can find them.
Yes.
And I think there's ways to draw them in, whether it's just through a tag or using a bridge of a song. It may not have to be the entirety of the song, but you can grab
Yes.
those moments of a song and weave them into your typical praise moment, which, your worship set, which may normally be more adoration and thanksgiving. And certainly that is appropriate.
Yes.
But if you look at the Psalms, the book of the Psalms is filled. I can't tell you off the top of my head what the percentage of it is, but it's a large percentage of those
Yes.
Psalms are laments. The full spectrum of worship that we've been provided with by, through the Bible incorporates and
Mm.
is not shy from including lament.
So good. I mean, there's a story in the sorrow, isn't
Yes.
there? And
Yeah.
we can't deny that. I think
Yeah.
you're wise in saying, it's not all, you can't have a whole set list like that. Like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
especially if people are struggling with depression or things in their
Yeah.
life, you want to sing about the hope. But
Yes.
I think that there is a space for it. And
Yeah.
I know Tim Hughes talks about it a little bit. I've
Yeah.
seen him. I remember when my dad passed, we did
Yeah.
the hymn 10,000 Reasons by Matt
Yeah.
Redman. And
Yeah.
every time I hear
Powerful.
it now, I get teary because I
Yeah.
remember the healing that it brought
Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
sing that song. But I was also thinking, like, as you're talking, the Lord was talking to me. I don't know if this happens to you. He was talking to
Yeah.
me as you were talking, and he was saying it's not necessarily the content, it's also about the posture of the heart. You
Yeah.
can actually
Yeah.
write songs
Yeah.
if you're a songwriter listening to this, and it doesn't even necessarily have to talk about the pain you're feeling, but
Yeah.
it's responding. You're
Yeah.
your response is coming out of that.
Yeah.
And there's healing in that, isn't there? And,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. And I
Well,
hope, I mean, like, I think of the Iona Church, the emergence of the Jesus movement that came out of, the 60s. And they were predominantly, there were songs of lament. It was
yeah.
natural to
Yeah.
have songs that sang
Yeah.
about pain, and
Yeah.
worship flourished in those seasons. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's like you just said, there's a maturity that we need
Yeah.
to do it and not like treat it like a bath and we're wallowing in it.
Yeah.
But there is a place for it. And
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear that
Yeah.
that's on the
Yeah.
radar. I mean, you've just explained that so incredibly
Yeah.
just through everything
Well,
you've been
think
through.
about this, right? Like in this Christmas carols, the song Away in a Manger, there's a line in there, bless all the dear children in your tender care. And it's like, when Jesus was born, Herod killed the children that were
Wow.
Jesus's age.
Wow.
That nation, right, went through a genocide of children under the age of 2. And of course, the stories that Mary and Joseph fled to Egypt. And yet, so that's a part of our Christian heritage. It's part of that story that we
Beautiful.
talk about every year. And we have this beautiful carol that speaks to something that, we sing it and it doesn't consume the whole song.
Yeah.
But it's just this little line in there that
Amazing.
gives reflection and gives voice to. It's a lament for the children that didn't survive
Wow.
that time of Jesus, and then that's the historical context, and then you throw to today. Now, when I sing that song, I can assure you, I sing that now with more conviction
Oh
than I
my
have ever
goodness.
sung in my entire life. Yeah. So
Wow. Oh my
yeah,
gosh. That's an incredible connection. Goodness.
yes, yeah,
That's perfect.
yeah. So
Oh,
as that is
wow.
church history and church people are writing these songs for us.
Yes.
Thousands, hundreds and thousands of years ago, or where I don't know the actual written date of that song, but
Yes.
they that now gives voice to us. And again, we're not. It's like you say, it's not the only song we see, but
Yeah.
it is a context and a place for it, and it
part of
gives
the
voice to
story.
people's pain
So good.
that we need. We need that song in our church.
Yes. I love it, Luke. Thank you for sharing that. That's a little gold nugget right there.
Yeah,
Very cool. Let's end this podcast
Yeah.
talking a little bit about songwriting because
Yes.
I'm on a mission. I say, and maybe people go, "I'm not a songwriter." I'm like, no, no, no. I firmly believe that every community needs to go after writing songs, whether the masses hear them or it's just for our community. I actually had a dream last year
Yep.
where the Lord, like in the dream, and I shared it in one of the podcasts here. I think it's called Echoes for the End Times. If you're looking for that podcast, people who are listening, but in the dream, it was all about the prophetic song being an integral part of the end of the age that the Lord required it. And I actually woke up. I've never had this experience before, but I woke up and I was crying before I woke up because of the conviction of that, even in my own life, because, I've even gone to that, I'm old, let the other people do it, and the Lord was like, excuse
No.
me, you need to get off that and just
Come
start
on.
writing again. I just felt such a conviction. So I'd love to hear what the Lord's doing in your community around songwriting. Do you want to share a bit about that? And how you're
So
facilitating it too.
Yeah, I look, I want to start off by saying, anything that I share from now on, are just, glimmers of hope of what we're doing. But, we're still on the journey and we could do better. So I don't want to paint a picture like we've got it all together. I'll tell you what we're doing and hope that people, when they're listening, can understand, like, this is just, it sometimes is in fleeting moments and there's, we need to definitely strengthen our strategy around it. But, certainly we have some amazing, gifted, talented songwriters in our house. And of course, Pastor Darlene is one of those. When you're talking about the prophetic song, and sometimes the prophetic song is actually a full song. It's a song that has a name, a title, a bridge chorus. When I look back at Pastor Darles's album, Here I Am, Send Me, that was a prophetic album for our church. Like, every one of those songs came from a teaching series or came from a moment in
Wow.
worship. And so, I can go back to that album now and relive the revelation that we were in as a church in that season, because she prophetically grabbed handles and melodies and attached theological depth that we were preaching about and put melodies to them, right? So, so she does that brilliantly. And you've alluded to this next project for her is that same thing, where we're beginning to now seep out some of these songs that she's put together, and they are
Amazing.
housing great prophetic moments for our community. So, I want to just put that out there first. She's incredible in that space. For us as a community, there's been songs that have flowed out of free worship moments. An example of that is like, we're at a free worship moment. I was leading. I started singing this little bridge moment. And straight away after the service, I knew it was more than just a free worship or a spontaneous thing. It felt very, established in some respects. So I grabbed a recording of it, sang it on my phone. And then for quite a few months, I sat on it. I tried to finish it a few times on my own. And this is the other thing I'd say to songwriting is like, come on, guys, you've got to collaborate.
Yes.
I write so much better with other people, and I write terribly on my own.
Yeah.
So anyway, collaborate would be a great tool for everyone. But I had this little bridge, and then one day I showed it to Beth Gleason, another great songwriter and one of our campus pastors on our team, and showed it to her, and she's like, "Oh, that sounds like I've got a verse and a chorus."
Wow.
That I wrote with my sister. So her and her sister have written this verse and chorus. And literally when we put them together from a BPM perspective and a key perspective, it was just like, oh, there's our song.
Wow.
And so they've been sitting on that chorus bridge with no direction for chorus verse had no direction for the bridge. And I had that bridge. So we put that together, and then, we got a little team together one day and kind of workshop the song as its new form. And then we're able to put a demo together and take that to our team. So that's one example of how we've been able to marry the spontaneous prophetic song into something that's become a more formulated song.
Yes.
So yeah, people are constantly writing. We're asking them to send in, demos, and we're wanting them to be like, okay, if you're going to send in a demo, provide some lyrics and a chord chart. I do think the church, and I say this is a statement for everyone, but hear it that it's a word for us. And me personally, we've got to get better at receiving feedback.
Yes.
When
that's a word.
Right. And it's for me. This word is
me
for me
too.
When I hang out with my friends in America who live and breathe in that Nashville community of songwriting, I've learnt from them. They are so good with feedback. They write every day, all the time. They live and breathe that water, right? And so when someone brings feedback, it's not so personal and so intimate. I think songwriters here in Australia, and this is my problem has been, I've been too intimate with my songs. They've been too close of a reflection of who I am. They've been too close to my own identity. And if someone provides me feedback on, hey, change that lyric, change that song, change that key, I have struggled with that in the past. So I'm definitely trying to push past that now and growing my maturity as a songwriter to receive feedback and let it be the result of multiple voices and not just my own. That's not to say people co-write on it. Many people are a little bit precious about that. You can receive feedback and not necessarily have them as a co-writer.
Yes.
Pastor Dales is great at that. She'll always say, hey, fix the lyrics in this verse and then lead you to do it. She won't necessarily provide those lyrics for you. And people struggle with that because sometimes they want, I'm like, well, give me the lyrics. Yeah. She's really empowering to go like,
wonderful.
Come on, that needs a little bit of a fix. Go and play with it for a bit. So yeah, that our songwriting culture, definitely we need to develop it more. But I think if we can grow in our receiving feedback, and we could just do it more, it with other people. Some of our team give us one song, and then that's it.
Mm.
And I kind of want to say, like, give us 6 songs and then let's pick the best song. And that's
Yes.
that's a word for me as well. So I'd encourage people, write more. Don't hinge off just the one song that you've written. Collaborate with people and just be open to
I
feedback.
love that. I love that, and I'm having a memory of
Yeah.
when I recorded. I had the absolute privilege of recording an album with Henry Seeley.
Yep.
It's a long time ago now. It's maybe 10 years ago now,
Yeah.
and I had 40 songs, and
Wow.
he wanted to pick 10.
Yeah.
He was like, "I need more than 10 songs. You're gonna have to give me everything you've got," right? So I wrote
Yeah.
for ages, and then I had 40 songs, and that wasn't really even enough. He was just like, "Have you got anything else?" And I had to sit in this room with he had my back towards me. He was at the computer
Yeah.
listening. If Henry, if you ever listen to this, you'll have a little laugh. And he would listen to the first minute, go, "Nah, no,
Yeah.
no." And I'm like, "Oh, but I love that song. Oh, but I love that song. Oh." And then he was like, "Okay, these are the best ones, there's 10." And
Yeah.
so I don't think people realize that. They think it's
Yeah.
just, I've written, you know, every songwriter thinks the song they've just written is the best song they've ever
Yeah.
written.
Yeah.
And we've
I
got
know.
to
I'm
realize,
guilty.
yeah, me too, me too. I mean, my husband's my best critic. I'll go, "I've written this song," and he'll go, "Oh, this is not a good song, Roma." And I'll be like, "What is wrong with you? What is your problem?" But it's actually true. We have to explore more than what we're
Yeah.
giving out. There's more.
Exactly.
And so I think it's really healthy what you're saying is, hey, you know, who was there's a great quote. I can't remember the guy's name, but he wrote that famous song from the 40s called Moon River. I don't know if you know that song, but yeah, I'm
That's
showing my age here. I'm not that I'm born in the 1940s, but I love those old
yeah.
movie type songs. But it was a song called Moon River, which was a Moon River wider than a mile. It's like one of those old black and white movie songs. And he actually said, "Write for the waste paper basket." And what he
Yeah.
meant by that was there's gonna be a lot of stuff you're gonna throw out
Yeah.
and be okay with that
Yeah.
because eventually something will be gold.
Yeah.
And I think that's a key for songwriters to recognize is and that's why I think songwriting isn't advancing as much as it should
Yeah.
in worship culture because people are not making the time to do
Yeah.
that. It's like an add-on to their worship
Yeah.
practice or it's an add I'm like, "Let's make this a thing and watch what happens." Like, make it a thing,
Yeah.
make time to
Yeah.
write more than you need,
Yeah.
and the Lord will
Great.
just do something beautiful with that. Anyway,
Yeah.
we've talked for a long time. I could talk to you forever, Luke.
And we do. Every time
Yeah,
we
we
see each
do.
other.
We do, and I love it. You actually drop a lot of gold and don't even realize. That's what I like about you. I'm like,
Thank you.
"Oh, that was so good what you just said." And then I take away my little notes and learn from you, Luke. So thank you for everything you've shared today has been absolute gold. I really feel like it's going to bless so many people. And
Thank you.
we look forward, you know what, to end. Do you think you could just do a quick prayer for our
Yeah. Yeah.
worshippers that are listening? That'd be
Yeah.
great. Go for it.
Yeah. And look, before I do, I will pray. Before I do that, I just want to honor you.
Mm.
You know, we've on and off known each other from a distance and that over many years now. And having you more closely in my life over the last, 2-3 years has been a great joy.
Oh,
Your voice in our worship community is needed. So I thank you. Thank you for things like this podcast, like putting this together, the time and the energy that takes. I appreciate it. I listen to the podcast. I'm sending
so
it to our
kind.
team, referring it to friends. So you just need to know you are a gift, an
That's
absolute
beautiful.
gift to the body of Christ. So receive that right now. And
Thank
I'm
you. I
honored
do.
that I am honored that you would invite me. This
Oh,
is so special. So thank you to you.
it's a privilege.
Yeah. But let me pray.
Go for it. Thank you.
Heavenly Father, we love you. We love you. We love your presence. We thank you that you have designed us to be in relationship with you and you have not withheld yourself from us. So today, as we acknowledge you in this space, as we acknowledge you, as we listen to this podcast, as we're driving in our cars or at home, as we cook and do the washing, whatever it is that we're doing with work, we acknowledge right now your presence. You are the thing we desire.
Yes.
We desire you above the things that you give us, the benefits of your relationship, Lord. We desire you above releasing songs. We desire you above having records and albums. We desire you above great moments in worship. Whilst all those things are exciting, they are peripheral to our love and passion of you. And so I pray for every person that's listening right now who maybe has just found themselves getting tied up in the things of God over you personally. I pray that this would just be a moment for them to reset. This would be a moment for even myself to reset you as the ultimate goal of all things.
Right.
I seek you first. I want to see your face first before anything else, God. And I just pray that as we align our hearts and our minds to you right now, as we tune back to you as the goal, Lord, let all those other things flow beautifully out of that place. I bless every songwriter that is listening to us today. I bless them with melodies and lyrics and chord progressions.
Yes.
I bless every worship leader and worship pastor who is slaving over a set list and giving time and energy to curating a beautiful moment in worship on Sunday. I bless every drummer, bass player, rhythm section, guitar player. I bless the horn sections that play in churches across the globe. I bless them as they bring the song and the sound of praise to their church communities this weekend, in the coming weekends. We bless their families. I pray that as they play and use their gifts in worship, they would experience a great fruitfulness in their relationship with you, God. We bless Roma and her family as well today. We bless them, Lord, with I pray that you would bless them in the finances.
Yes.
You would bless them in their relationships. You would bless them in their church community. I pray that every need that is on her heart right now, that you would be meeting in a very personal, intimate way, God. And we thank you for this time together. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Luke. And
Thank you.
it's been a joy to have you today. And guys, we love hearing your feedback. So don't forget to write in or send a message on socials. We'd love to hear it. Until next time, we hope you've enjoyed this podcast. We'll see you, or you'll see me, in the next Release the Sound podcast. Bless you heaps.